Welcome back to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Minnell. This week's special guest is Colin Sutton, a former detective chief inspector known for cracking some of the UK's most challenging criminal cases. Colin gives us a real look inside his high-stakes investigations, the resilience it took and the impact these cases had on his life. Also a huge shout out to Liverpool Water Sports Centre and FIFA for helping us out. Thanks for listening and watching this episode.
I never came across anyone with that sort of evil. Most murderers don't intend to be murderers.
On the Madeleine McCann case, what you would have done differently?
Somebody seen you in the Met who phoned me up and said, don't do it. You won't like being told where you can and can't look.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Minnell. And this week's special guest is former detective, Chief Inspector Colin Sutton, who's led some of the most high-profile and successful murder investigations. Really looking forward to sharing the Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Colin, how are we?
I'm very good, thanks. Yeah, nice to be in sunny Liverpool. It's lovely.
Thanks very much. I know you're very busy. You're on your tour at the moment of the UK.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I'm doing the theatre tour. I'm doing 110 gigs, I think. And I've done 22 so far. All over the place, literally. Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Isle of Man. And it's just talking about murder, really, and the cases I've done, and it's just on the back of this. You know, true crime is so big at the moment, and I wasn't doing any TV for a little while, and I knew, so I'd had nothing to do, and I did a previous tour on my own of different material, and that was really hard work organising. It really was. I don't want to do that again. I think I did 26 or 27 in that one. But all the liaising with the theatres and all the emails and different requests, it was just me doing it. It was really hard. And as a result of that, there's promoters who said, do you want to come do another one for us? And now I just turn up, do it and go away again. It's marvellous.
And you've got 120 to do and you're 22 in, are you?
Yeah, something like 100. I think it's 110 and I'm 22 in, yeah.
Brilliant. And there's tickets available for people who want, to come and see it.
Yeah, there's, I mean, if they either look on my socials or the tour's called Makings of a Murderer 2. If they Google that, they'll see where I am. There's a list of all the gigs and great to see. We've had really big crowds, really good crowds so far. So yeah, it's good fun and obviously for me it's kind of different every night because you get a different reaction to different things that I say. But for me, the best bit really is at the end. I always go out to the foyer at the end and people come along and bring books for me to sign or all sorts of things and have a chat, ask me questions. And yeah, I think if people are good enough to watch my TV and buy my books, then I'm good enough to go out and meet them.
Yeah. We're going to get into this because we've just been speaking before we started the podcast about why true crime's so big and stuff, but we will get into that. But like I say, we've wanted to get you on. You've done some unbelievable work over the last, say, 40 years. I know obviously you've been in the police force for over, was it 30 years?
30 years, yeah.
So we're going to get into all that, Colin. So I just want to start from where you grew up, where you're from, family and school life was like.
Yeah, I grew up in Enfield in North London, which was kind of a bit suburban at the time when I grew up. It's not now. London's expanded out and I'm an only child. My dad was a cop. Indeed, so was my great-grandfather, and so is my son now. So there's 4 out of 5 generations that served in the Met. I used to like playing my football. I played football for the district, for the borough when I was at school. I was lucky enough to go to a grammar school that was still, they had then. It was a bit of an A-level factory, but I did okay academically, I suppose. And ended up wanting to join the police. I think I'd been exposed to my dad's friends and that from a young age. I think because I was an only child, I tended to get taken places with mum and dad. They're still alive, my mum and dad, by the way. They live near me in East Anglia now. Yeah, they're getting on a bit, but they're still okay. So I went to university at Leeds, but I gave up after a year of the term and joined the Met instead. And joined the Met, went to Tottenham, which was quite nice because I was a Tottenham fan, still am obviously, and ended up policing the ground there as well.
So you got to watch the football as well?
Yeah. I've actually done more football at Arsenal because I was an inspector at Holloway for uniform inspector for about 4 years, and every season I had a fixed point at the Arsenal.
Highbury,
under George Graham. So when they played Wimbledon, you had to sort of look up like that because the ball was kicked up in the air all the time. But Yeah, it was. Tottenham was a tough place. It was very different to Enfield in those days, and there was a bit of an eye-opener. I'd had quite a sort of a mollycoddled existence, I suppose, really, and it was a bit jaw-dropping as to how some people lived, I suppose. I just hadn't come across that, you know.
What was that, early 70s maybe?
No, it was early 80s.
Early 80s?
Yeah, 1981 I joined. So I went out to Tottenham in April 81 from training school, just after the first lot of riots in 81 at Brixton, but before the second lot in the June or July. So I ended up with that. Yeah, there was a time when I was standing there with a shield thinking, why the hell didn't I carry on and do that law degree? But I didn't really mean it. But I had a good time. It was somewhere to... Yeah.
What's it like on the front line though, when, say for instance, you're dealing with riots or you're dealing with like football disorder and you're holding the shield and it's, you know, this disorder going on all around you. What's that feel? What's the adrenaline and stuff like?
Yeah, it's not as scary as you think it will be. The prospect of it is more scary. When it's actually happening,
And it's
you kind of just
you go into that
react and
mode,
you go into the mode you've got to do it. And you're always with others, you know. It's not when you're on your own. You're there as a team. I mean, interesting, you know, I'm always known as being a detective, but the first commendation I ever got was for public order. It was when I was uniform inspector, which was the second poll tax riot down at outside Brixton Prison, where it's a silly story, but we were with shields and we were pushing them back up Brixton Hill, and there was a big park on the right hand side, and as we're pushing with the shields in a line, they're going off through the park and they're going to come around behind us. And I realised that was going to be dangerous because we'd have the rioters behind us.
You were boxed in and all that.
Well, we would have been. So what I did was I grabbed another load of police officers with shields that weren't mine. I don't know whose they were. And just said, come on, come with me. And we went round and sort of swept the park back out and swept them back in front of the ordinary line. And
pushed them up, yeah.
And I'll always remember one of the sergeants or something in this other group of officers, he said, who's this bloke then? He must have borrowed them pips. He's half sensible, you know. But somebody from that group, not my own group, sort of did a report about it and said that how I...
And you received an award for it,
yeah. That was the first one I got. So I used to quite enjoy that sort of stuff. I was shield trained for many, many years. I was a lot fitter then, obviously, in the younger days. But it was, it's hard. It's scary. It can be scary. Sometimes, but there's always this thing that you're part of a team, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't forget, I spent an awful, because of the strange career that I had, where I'd got onto this sort of accelerated promotion scheme. So I was acting sergeant with 2 years and 3 weeks service, 3 months service. I was an inspector with 4 years and 11 months. I was 25 years old.
Was that unheard of, was it? Or?
Yeah, I was apparently the youngest in the country at the time. The local paper came around, took a picture of me. Yeah. So of the 30 years, I spent 27 of them sort of supervising or leading others. And I think when you're in those situations, you've got an added responsibility because you've always got to look after them and make sure that they're doing the safe thing. So it kind of, you're not just looking after yourself, you're looking out for them as well. Yeah. So it's quite a tough situation, but you know, let's all be grateful people still want to do it, because it's the hardest terrain or landscape for policing now that there's ever been. You know
what goes on now in the UK. You know.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just unbelievable that really sometimes that young men and women still put themselves forward to do the job. Thank God they do. But,
and within the police, though, I don't think any day is the same, really, is it? You know, you could be dealing with like disorder, you could be dealing with, you know, there's variety of stuff that happens on a daily basis, and
that was a great attraction for me, Tony.
Really?
That was a great attraction for me. Was that nothing, you know. I used to say when I was a PC at Tottenham, I'd walk out of the police station and I'd know if I was going to turn left or right, and that was it. That's all I knew for the next 8 hours, you know. And I quite like that.
But you didn't know what was going to come.
No, but the variety and the, you know, having to sort of manage problems, if you like, and react to things. Yeah, I found that attractive. I liked it.
Bloody hell, it's bonkers to think that, you know, within 4 years, you're saying you know you've gone up the ladder straight away, and you know you seem, you know, with what you've done within the, you know, the police and stuff, that you've been a leader all your life by the sounds of. So after 4 years, did you think, I want to do this, step up to that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought I never thought I'd be a detective. I never wanted to be a detective.
Really?
No. I was doing all that public order sort of stuff and uniform stuff.
And you enjoyed that?
And I thought I'd just sort of carry on getting promoted and do that. And then I accidentally came across a murder when I was off duty when I was about 22, when I was an acting sergeant, and ended up working with that murder squad for a few days or weeks, I can't remember. And thought, wow, this is great. That job as the SIO, leading these, that looks a great job. I'd really like to do that. And because of the way my career path was, there was no prospect really of doing it. I couldn't hope to do it. And then just things fell into place for me. They decided that they weren't going to have any more promotions to Chief Inspector and Superintendent for some time because they had too many. And those of us who were on this sort of list of high potential scheme, as they called it, they said, well, we can't promote you for the next 2 or 3 years. In fact, it was 4. But if you want to do something different and you want to sort of be laterally developed, I think they called it. So I said, well, can I be a detective then? I said, yeah, okay, if you want. And that was it. And I did it and started doing it, and I just loved it so much. And once I became a senior investigating officer, it was just had a team.
There's no looking back.
I just didn't want to do anything else, and I did that for 15 years.
Bloody hell. So,
yeah.
Was it 39 successful, murder?
I think so. I mean, people, I think there were 39 I was actually SIO for, I'm not sure where that figure came from. It was at least that. There might have been more, actually.
39 murder investigations, successful ones as well, is that correct?
Yeah, we lost one. We had one where we got it to court and he got acquitted. And it was incredible. And I have to be careful talking about it because obviously he was acquitted. But I thought it was one of the stronger cases we ever had.
It was nailed on.
Yeah. And it was just one of those, juries are juries. And you can't get hung up about it because our job is to get the best evidence we can, give it to the lawyers and the court, and then see what happens.
Yeah.
And if you got fed up about it, you'd go mad at a very early age because you lose things at court all the time as a PC. But the murders were. There was a couple that we did. We had to step in and do some what they called then trident murders in London, which were the sort of black on black gang. And there was a separate command for that. And they were so busy in the sort of mid 80s or early 80s that oh dear, 80, I'm in the boat. 2000s, sort of 2004, 2005, 2006. They were so busy that quite often the ordinary murder teams like ours would have to take their jobs on. And we had 2 of those. And the sad thing is, they were both young lads, 16 and 18, and we knew who did it, and people in the community knew who did it.
But they were scared to.
And they told us who'd done it, but not officially. And somebody once said, one of them said, the trouble is, the people who did that can do far worse things to us than the police ever can. So we've got to respect them and not respect you. And you understand that?
It's that what's name mentality. It's fear, isn't it? And stuff. And so it's like you're saying, young lives have been lost there. And it's like today, what we see with knife crime and gun crime, where these young kids of today, they have no fear. They think they're above the law, and the community's scared to speak out, And
oh God, that's the real issue. And the sad thing for me about it was the parents, both kids. I mean, one of them I remember, the first one. His mother was like a district nurse, and she was a lovely, big, booming, happy, jolly West Indian lady, and had been, she just absolutely devastated by her son getting shot as he was.
Yeah.
And the same with the other one, again, the family were just absolutely torn apart by the senseless loss of their son at that age. And, there's all this business about stop and search. It's the people that I know that are most in favour of stop and search are the victims' mothers and fathers. Every one of those wishes with all their heart that the person who killed their son was stopped and searched 10 minutes before he did it.
It's mad, isn't it? Because stopping and searching, you need the manpower or to do that, and you say 10 minutes before, and it can happen within an instant, and they could have been stopped and searched and went and collected the weapon and whatever.
I know.
You're just fighting a losing battle, isn't it?
Yeah, you are, but there's no other way of, I always say this to people, and they can't really argue back against it, I don't think, that if you say you're opposed to stop and search, then that means you're opposed to enforcing the laws against carrying knives in a public place, because the only way of enforcing it is by doing that. You know, you can't put knife arches on the high street, can you? And even if you do, someone's then got to come and put their hands in your pockets. You know, that's the only way of doing it. So if if you're saying you think that in terms of making sure that communities don't feel they're being picked on, or certain ethnicities are being picked on, or whatever, that we shouldn't do it, that's fine. That's a view that you can take, but you've got to understand that that means we can't enforce these laws.
Yeah, so you're right. It's one of those, isn't it?
No, it's really difficult. Yeah.
So also, Colin, what I wanted to speak about is obviously when you catch these individuals. Obviously, you've dealt with so many cases over the years. What's it like when you know you've nailed them, you've got them?
That's always a period of great sort of joy. You know, it's literally you feel as happy as you do for anything. Certainly with the big cases, you know.
Yeah.
When the funny thing with Levi Belfield was that although we knew it was him, we knew we had the right man, but
he was a sick man.
He was, was he ever? But there was no forensic evidence. There was no DNA, no blood, no fingerprints, nothing like that. It was all a real painstaking case. That's why the team was so brilliant, and that's actually why I'm sitting here and didn't fade into obscurity, because I decided to write a book about it because I thought it would get lost, and what they'd done deserved not to be lost.
The team you're talking about.
Yeah, the team.
You're not highlighting him for what he's done.
No, not him at all.
No.
But the work that they did was of such high quality, and I thought that'll never be remembered, because at the time, what true crime there was in the mid-2000s was very perpetrator focused. Certainly the American stuff still is to a degree, actually. And I hope we've sort of moved that and moved the needle a bit over here by doing what I've been doing with Real Manhunter, where we concentrate on the investigation and the victims rather than the perpetrator. Just a small thing, we name every episode of The Real Manhunter after the victim.
It's not
after the perpetrator.
It's sort of not giving them the little bit of thing that they think.
Yeah, exactly that. You don't want to, don't want to give them the sort of oxygen of publicity almost.
Of course,
what we want to publicise is the effect it has on victims
and the families and stuff.
And families, and also the effect it has on the officers and how well the officers work. So I think there's a good thing for the public to understand just how bloody good the police can be sometimes. They get knocked a lot, often quite rightly, but I think it's worth making the other case saying sometimes they do a bloody good job, and so that's all sort of tied in with it. So yeah, I mean with Belfield because it was all just a circumstantial case, lots of circumstantial evidence, but it was all circumstantial. There was always that suspicion at the back of your mind that it might not land with the jury. And so, there's other cases where we have had things like DNA and CCTV that shows, where it's just obvious, they're going to get convicted.
Yeah.
But with Belfield, we couldn't really have that celebration of relief that we got when that foreman of the jury stood up and said guilty. And funnily enough, I have this thing where I think Muhammad Ali used to do it. He used to call it future history. Do you know how he used to say the champ will fall in round 5? And he said that he played it all through in his mind. And
then
I kind of do that sort of thing, yeah? And I'd rehearsed in my mind 1,000 times how I was going to turn around, because he's right behind me through glass, but he's right behind me sitting in the
dock.
Yeah, he was going to give that, they were going to give that guilty verdict, and I was going to turn around and look him in the eye. And when it came, all I could do was grab Joe Brunt's arm and squeeze it, and we just looked at each other with tears in our eyes. So, it just didn't happen.
That's what I'm saying, the effect. Yeah. And, when you make these, the drama, not so much a drama, should I say, you broadcast Manhunter and stuff. Yeah. It's the hard work that I think that's why people are so intrigued to see exactly what goes in to catching these murderers and these, these despicable people. You see, like, trawling hours and hours of CCTV, and stuff like that, and it's mad how, like, you see it and it, it's being filmed and that or whatever in the background, and they go, "We've got him, boss," or "We've got this," and a van or the taxi or something, and it's just just drop.
Oh, those moments are priceless. They're better than a Harry Kane hat-trick, you know. I mean, they're just absolutely priceless. But yeah, I mean, it's when we made the Manhunt drama with Martin Clunes.
Yeah.
You know, the good thing about that was that we set out to make that the most accurate representation of a London murder squad in the 2000s.
Martin Clunes played yourself, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. It's a bit odd, but no, he's a lovely man, and a very good actor. But Ed Whitmore was the proper screenwriter that I worked with to do it, and Ed's very experienced, done lots and lots of good stuff. And it was interesting because one of the kind of golden rules, if you like, apparently for scriptwriters, is you never waste a scene. So every scene you have has to mean something and contribute to the story. And when we were talking about it, he came and stayed at my house when we wrote it at first, for five days, and we did the first episode together. And he told me that, and I said, well, I understand that, Ed, and I get the idea of that. It's expensive. You don't want to waste scenes, So, but the fact is that we're doing a dramatisation of real events, and in real life and real murder investigations, there are wasted scenes, and so we did, and we had these blind alleys in it, and it worked. And he said afterwards, he said, I'm now questioning the golden rule. He said, when I do fictional stuff in the future, I realise now it's actually okay to put wasted scenes in that don't go anywhere if they add to the whole sort of overall. So, yeah, it was interesting. It was. I never thought I'd get involved in doing stuff like that.
I remember watching it. I remember it was on ITV.
Yeah.
And it was like a couple of, I'm sure it was over a couple of...
3 nights it was, yeah. The first one was 3 nights, the second one was 4 nights. Yeah.
And it's just, to see, that type of, that being made into a drama, because of obviously it was horrific what that man done, to them women and stuff.
But it was very much less is more, we thought. It was sort of deliberately understated. There were no car chases, no gun battles, It was actually to show, look, this is actually how it happened.
The investigation.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, then we did it again with, I think the second one with Delroy Grant, the Night Stalker, was actually a better piece of television, but it must have been because that's the one that got nominated for the BAFTA. Fancy that, getting nominated. Yeah. I'm a kid from Enfield, and we got nominated for a BAFTA. It's just nuts. But yeah, I mean, it was being able to show menace and the dastardly things that these men had done, but doing it subtly. And that's why Ed was a genius. The way he just moved things around and paced it and kept it flowing, it was an absolute genius. And it was, there was lots of suspense, there was little bits of action, but not much. There were bits of humour in it. I just think they were really good bits of work.
But this is why I think people, like we spoke about true crime, when you see, because you hear little snippets in the news, but when you watch these dramas, you find out exactly the lengths that these despicable criminals have gone to, Belfield and Grant, murdering and abusing and breaking in and the lengths they went to, some of the stuff that they done. And when you watch them dramas, you feel like you're part of the investigation. You're watching and you're thinking, this and that, and everyone's got their own scenarios, how they could have done what, you know what I mean? Everyone thinks they're a detective, do you know what I mean?
I think I prefer, I do watch crime dramas, but I prefer when they're based on a real story.
Yeah.
Little Boy Blue, which would probably be close to your heart, being where we're sitting and
in Liverpool,
Yeah, I mean, that was really well done. And what an awful, tragic story. And a great piece of investigation. But, I thought that showed really well the difficulties that you have, like we were talking earlier, about the community and people
intimidated and stuff like that.
So I think the drama is a really good vehicle for showing these things if they're done in that way. And they're done with that kind of focus on saying this is the effects it has on people, the effects it has on communities, this is how the police officers perform what they're up against. I think that's worth doing. If it's glorifying, people like Grant and Belfield.
And I think the way we're talking, we don't really want to give them that bit of like what's the name because they're not worth for what they've done and for the victims and stuff like that. But going back to like you're saying, like Little Boy Blue and stuff like that, and within what happened within Liverpool, and that's where we're doing the podcast today. Is like we've had so many incidents in Liverpool and surrounding areas and stuff with these type of things that go on, like serious crime where people are murdered and lost their lives, young women, young men, and it's that thing. It was like there was a drama about it. It was a program on Channel 4, and it was showing you the likes of what's gone on, where a young girl lost her life. Within 48 hours, there was 2 young lives lost in Liverpool.
Yeah.
You know, and through gun crime.
Yeah.
And you're trying to, and it showed you the detectives working behind the scenes to try and nail the people who were behind it. And it gives people, after obviously they've been convicted, they're not going to put it out before they've gone to court and stuff. And I think a lot of people understand when it hits the news and you see nobody, young or old, should lose their lives to violent crime and stuff. But you know yourself, over the years, you've dealt with so much. But when you put these programs out, like you say, if it's real and, you know, it's not, where this in Liverpool was, I watched it, I think it was over a couple of nights, and I watched it with my wife, and we were blown away. Yeah. You know, the hard work that goes in, they're trying to catch individuals that, you know, that create problems and kill, you know, and take some people, you know, a lot of innocence. They're all innocent people that are caught up.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's funny you say that, actually, because it's one of the things I always have to stress is that, yes, it's worse. It's more tragic even when it's innocent people are caught up. But do you know what? It doesn't make any difference to those officers, because no matter what the victim's circumstances, the victim's background, you know, a lot of people who are murdered end up being murdered because of lifestyle choices that they've made, or things that they're involved in. That's just a fact. But whether they're involved in, you know, sex work, or if they're involved in drugs or gangs or whatever, it doesn't actually make any difference to those officers who are investigating it, if only for the simple reason that you're professional. Yeah. And your professional pride says, we want to solve this. We want to solve everything that's put in front of us. Doesn't matter who the victim is, you know. And you can sometimes feel this is more tragic, if you like, but it doesn't mean you work any harder. Yeah. And going back to a sort of a football analogy, you know, to say, oh, it doesn't matter, he was a drug dealer, would be like throwing a game. Would be like not putting a tackle in, you know, or something like that. You've got to do what you can do, your best you can do as
to the best of your ability. Yeah, of course.
And that always happens. So, you know, I don't have any sort of truck at all with people who say, oh, you don't investigate murders of ethnic minorities or gay people or sex work. No, they do. They all get the same treatment, because we want to solve everything that's given to us. Yeah. And if you look at it in that sense about professional pride, you'll understand that you wouldn't just say, oh, it doesn't matter, you know.
But when you see the behind the scenes stuff with, like, the investigation teams, you see 24 hours in police custody and all stuff.
Great program.
Fantastic. You know, it's one of I love watching it, because you're seeing, you know, whatever the title is, and you think, wow, and then it's like something's happened, there's been an incident, whether it be in a murder, whether it be, you know, some criminality of some sort, and to go from, like, within that hour, people think it's done within the hour, but it's over the course of months and whatever, and sometimes years. I think people are just blown away by what goes into it to catch people. You know, I think it's, you know, that's why I think so many people love real crime, true crime. You know?
Yeah, I think it's right. I mean, the number of people I get doing my shows that come and speak to me at the end, young people who say, oh, I really want to I want to do what you did. I want to be a detective, you know? What's your advice? And I kind of wonder if they really appreciate that that's what it's like, and it's not all encapsulated in an hour.
Till you're on the...
And funnily enough, and I would say it here because it's quite good, if I get 18-year-olds who say, I'm going off to university and I want to be a direct entry detective at some point, my advice is always the same. Wherever you go to university, join the specials. Seek out your local force there, join the specials. You only have to commit to 8 hours minimum a month. It will help you find out whether you like being in the police force or not. It might find, no, I'm never going to work with this lot, and do something else, If you do go on to be a direct entry detective, it will give you a really good grounding in policing and how the organisation works. And because I'm a cynic, I'll say, even if nothing else, you'll have something really good to put on your CV when you apply for other jobs. You know, that's my advice to them.
Yeah,
Because I think otherwise, I think we give people, young people, unrealistic expectations of what they can achieve. And that's not to say that I don't believe that everyone can achieve anything they want. I do. You know, I was never going to be a senior investigating officer because it was impossible on my career path that I did it. So I never say never like that. But for example, our universities in this country turn out thousands of people a year with degrees in forensic science. There are 43 police forces, there's a National Crime Agency, and most of the people who go and work for them as forensic scientists work for 40 years. Do the maths, you know? Where are these people going? I've got a good friend of mine, his daughter did it, and she's ended up working at Newmarket in the horse racing industry, doing sort of DNA matching and stuff in horse racing, which is okay, fine, she loves the job and it's a nice job to do. But she wants to be a crime scene examiner and do forensic stuff. There's just not the jobs there. But yet, because it is kind of catchy and it's an interesting thing, you've got people all over the place saying, I'll go and do that. And they're churned out with these degrees and find there aren't the jobs for them. So, you know,
it's mad, isn't it?
It's a funny world.
Why do you think, Colin, people are so fascinated with true crime? What do you think?
I believe that it's something about a window into a world that you're interested and know that it exists, and through true crime you can be part of that world without actually
being involved,
without any risk. Yeah. I think essentially that's it. I think it plays into the things of like how people like to do puzzles. Yeah, certainly for me.
Problem solving.
Problem solving. Yeah, you know, I think everybody likes to sit and watch it and say, "Oh, this is what they should have done," or that. Yeah. Even my wife started doing it. She knew, she knew nothing about policing when I met her, and never really spoken to a policeman before. But yeah, I mean, there's that side of it. It's an interesting sort of demographic, because certainly if you go to things like CrimeCon in London and some of the sort of stuff that, you know, there's a friend of mine called David Swindle who did the Makings of a Murderer Tour 1 before me. And he's talking to the show, the tour manager, who's the same guy, saying that most of David's audience were women. And I think still probably most of my audience are women. And most people at CrimeCon are women. It's a very female thing. But the interesting thing is we're noticing at my shows, we're actually getting more and more couples.
Yeah.
And we don't understand why that is, but what our suggestion is that actually it's because I do The Real Manhunter on telly, couples watch things on television together.
Together, yeah.
Yeah. And so because it's now me doing it, not David, that they, oh yeah, I've seen him on the telly with you. Yeah, okay, I'll come along and see it. I don't know, but it's increasingly I'm noticing the people who come to see him at the end
are couples.
It's couples rather than groups of women.
They're probably watching on the couch or in bed on the tea, you know, together and stuff.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's mad. But yeah, there's I say, I think that's it for me, is that people get an idea of they can be a part of this world without the risk. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I got worried yesterday, or interested yesterday, watching something on TV news. Virginia McCulloch, she's a 36-year-old woman in Chelmsford who was convicted, given 30 years life sentence for murdering her parents and storing them in the house for 4 years or something.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre story.
Seen the clip yesterday myself, yeah.
Yeah, so they showed the clips of the body-worn video of the police officers, and she's explaining to them in such matter-of-fact terms, oh yeah, well yeah, if you cut the 5 wardrobes upstairs and my dad's in one of those, like she's saying, you know, I've lost my car keys, where are they?
Just blasé.
And she's so blasé, she's so matter-of-fact, and I just wonder, I looked at it and I thought, I bet she's a true crime fan. And that's not because I think all true crime fans are
going to go and commit
murderers.
Yeah.
Quite the reverse. But I think that she's sort of jumped that line. I wouldn't be surprised to find that she's had this window into the world and she's actually crossed the line. And now it's all come on top for her and the police are around and she's going to get arrested. She knows what's happening. She's still got this attitude that she's kind of playing out something that's just something matter-of-fact and ordinary.
And I seen the clip.
And that's worrying.
And you know what you're saying? You're totally right. It was the way she dealt with the officers and stuff. And I was waiting for this or something, she's something along them lines. And
There's no hint of remorse.
No.
No hint of sadness with her or anything
She was
like
just
that.
like, it was...
No hint of anger, no hint of kind of being combative with the police about something, or I'm not...
It was just
It was
day
just
to day,
matter of
like
fact,
normal.
oh yeah, well of course I killed them and that's where they are. It was bizarre.
It's absolutely balmy, isn't it? When you see stuff like that, and obviously they've released the footage now because obviously she's been sentenced
Convicted,
and been convicted, should I say? And when you do see these clips, and you're tending to see more and more, and I think that's why it draws people in, because people go, wow, you know, they might see a clip on social media, and then they'll go and find it, whether it be on YouTube or or it's on Sky or it's on, you know, on terrestrial TV. But I just think with true crime now, you're getting more and more people who are very, very, you know, fascinated, and they want to know the ins and outs of certain crimes.
And some of them, you know, are just so knowledgeable. And because I've done what I've done, they think I am, and I'm really not. And like at CrimeCon a couple of times, they do a one-day one in Glasgow that I went to a couple of times, and they always put on a quiz. And everyone said, oh, come and be on my team. And I said, you don't really want me on your team. You know more about truth. It's a question on Belfield or Grant. Yeah, I'm your man. But otherwise, you know, it is. I mean, I'm not knocking it at all because, you know, I'm riding the wave sort of thing. And I've arrived at the right time in history sort of thing to be part of it. And I'm loving being part of it and being part of it.
You sharing the experience as well, Colin, where people are coming to see your shows and they want to know that little bit more. They know a little bit, but they want to know that little bit more. Where I think that's why it's so.
And I say this to them that it's like so the second half of the show, I talk again about Levi Belfield and Delroy Grant, and it's all been done to death so much. And what I do is I talk about stuff that hasn't really been that much publicised, and I say to them the reason I can do it, and I think it's worth doing, and why they seem to enjoy it, is because it's almost like doing it one-to-one. I mean, it's not because there's hundreds of people there, but it feels like that because when you're writing a book or you're making a TV program, you haven't got that audience, you haven't got that feedback, you haven't got people nodding and smiling and shaking their head or whatever, you know, and oohing and ahhing. And laughing as well. It's not all deadly serious, my show. Yeah, I'm not very serious. I mean, funnily enough, that was the only criticism I had of Martin after the first drama. I said, you're too serious. I'm not that serious. And you're one of our best ever comedy actors, and you were too serious. He took it on board very much, and he got it in the second half.
And he nailed it
as well.
In
the second half, yeah. Oh yeah, my family and friends sort of say, oh yeah, he got you to a T, you know. And he's obviously a brilliant actor. And what was lovely about it was that he didn't want to do it. He'd always said he's never going to play a detective, okay?
Really, yeah.
And it was just that his production company, or his wife's production company, Buffalo, I mean, they make Doc Martin, they make his documentary and things like that, but they occasionally do other things. They made a documentary about Conan Doyle, and it was called Arthur and George, I think, and Ed did the adaptation of the book for that, and Martin played Conan Doyle. And that was how Ed Whitmore sort of got into them and said, oh, I've got this story I know about a friend of mine, Colin Sutton, blah, blah. And that's how it happened. So Martin's wife has commissioned the script. He's saying, I would say what he said. He said, I've always said I don't want to play Inspector Wanker of the Yard with 3 ex-wives and a drink problem. You know, that was so sort of cliched, yeah? That were his words. And then we did the script, and Philippa got it and showed it to him and said, I'm having that. Which was nice because he appreciated the very different way that we did a murder drama to the normal. Yeah.
But like you say, the reception you received from Manhunt on ITV and The Real Manhunt on Sky, it was off the scale.
Yeah, we had 9 million watching each episode of the 7, so 3 in the first season, 4 in the second season. Each episode was 9 million. And I mean, that's just... These days,
them numbers are...
These days are huge numbers. ITV said to the first one, if you make anything approaching 4, we'll be happy. And we made 9. Mm-hmm. So...
It's going back to that again, true crime. People are just...
Yeah. The other silly thing, it's a story I like to tell people, this all fell into my lap, as I say. I'll tell the story about exactly how it came about?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
When I first retired, I'm delivering flowers. Okay? I was working for a florist.
Keeping busy.
Delivering, just something to do, £8 an hour, you know, with a van around Surrey giving people flowers. It's fine. I just had the radio on, and I was doing a little bit of punditry work mostly for ITV News about crime, and somebody who knew Ed Whitmore, I didn't know him, but somebody, a friend of a friend of a friend, Ed was writing a drama for BBC and he wanted it to be really authentic. And he said, and what I need is a recent retired murder detective who can tell me. And a friend of a friend of a friend said, oh, speak to Colin Sutton. So Ed emailed me. He came to see me. I lived in Surrey then. He came to see me and we talked about it. Now, the thing he was writing never got made. It got canned for whatever reason. But we got on really well. And talk about encyclopedic knowledge of true crime worldwide. That's your man. Oh yeah, because he draws bits from here and bits from there and bits from there to make
it all goes to
and we got chatting. I say we really got on. He's about 10 years younger than me, but he's and a very different background to me. But we just got on. We're friends now, yeah. And he said, I told him that I'd started writing this book. I said, but I've done about 20,000 words, and it's a load of turgid nonsense. Nobody will ever read it, you know. And he said, I want to see it. I want to see it. So I sent it to him, and the next I heard, he phoned me up and said, I want you to meet a producer who wants to make your book into a TV show, which was Philip Braithwaite, who runs Buffalo. And I said, well, I haven't finished it yet. He says, no, just on what you've written so far. So I went to the meeting. Next thing I know, I've got an option contract on the book that I haven't written. Then Ed comes up, we write the first episode. It gets sent to ITV. They eventually commission the whole lot. And all of a sudden, I've got the rest of a book to write and 2 more episodes of a drama in 6 months. And it's just frantic typing like that. And the way we did it is quite interesting. I think people who write look at me. I've got a couple of friends, one from school who actually who writes books on sport. He was a sports journalist. And
did you get him to write?
Sorry?
Did you get him to do it for you?
No, I didn't. No, I did it all myself. But Dave, he's an Arsenal fan, so I don't get on with him that much. I do. He's actually an expert on NFL.
Yeah.
He's retired now, but he spent a lot of time reporting on NFL, yeah. But I was talking to him about it at our school reunion, the weird way that I wrote it. So what we needed, I wrote a long outline for Ed of the whole story. And then he said, we want that bit, that bit, that bit, that bit, and that bit. So I wrote the chapters from a book for those, sent them to him. He turned them into a script, sent it to me. I invented it, and we did it by email ping pong. And when we finished with the script, I've got about 50% of the book written, the chapters, and I then write the chapters that sew it all together.
Bloody hell.
And you think about it as a way of working, it sounds mad.
Yeah.
But it works. I did it for both books, and it's the way we did it. It's the way it works, yeah.
So you retired in 2011, was that right?
Yeah.
Was there a time thinking, I want to get back at it, or was it just, that was
No,
the right time?
not really. It was the right time, I think. I was only 50, you know, so you get a... Yeah, you know, you think I've got time to do something else, like deliver flowers. I don't know. No, I mean, it was a time when they were actually pushing people out the door. What they called a Regulation 19, I think it was, something that once you've done 30 years, we can make you go. And they didn't make me go.
Was you ready, Colin? Or?
But I was, yeah, do you know, I mean, this sounds really bad. The last 10 months, I was pretty bored because we'd done Night Stalker, and the bosses wouldn't let me go back to doing other murders and things. They wanted me to stay till it went to court. And I said, look, I can retire before this is going to go to court. And I'm driving 48 miles each way around the M25 each morning to work, going in and often got really nothing to do. And then I'd sit there for 8 hours, go home again. And it was a waste of my time, but I just got bored with it. And I guess I kind of fell out of love a bit with the job at that time.
Really?
Yeah, which is sad, really, because it's, you know, being a police officer made me who I am. There's no doubt about that. I'd be a very different person if I'd not done that, and for the better. It made me a better person. I'm sure it did. But yeah, it was all a little bit sad at the end. Where I didn't even have a retirement party. I just the people I was working with on the Night Stalker case, and funnily enough, one of my very best friends who I was at school with, who was also a police officer and now lives about 3 miles from me, and he had the season ticket next to me at Tottenham until we gave it up this season. He happened to be at Lewisham Police Station for a meeting for something else because he was still serving as a DI, and he came to it, and that was it. There was about 10 people, and we had a drink in the pub around the corner, and that was the end. And you know, I had so much leave stored up that I actually stopped working in November on my birthday, in November 2010. and I had one more day to do that I had to do. So I'd taken all the leave, and that one day was the 10th of December when myself and 6 others got our commendations to Belfield from Crestedick at Youth Scotland Yard. So my last day's police duty, I went to the yard.
And you collecting?
Got my commendation with all those people who had done so well with me. Then we went to the pub and got completely blotto. And that was it. I'm out of here, you know. But when I kept my warrant card and kept my stuff until I was actually retired, because I could use it on the train and things, yeah, just in case. And you know, I went into Lewisham that last day, and there was a young lady there in the personnel office, HR office, and I went there, so I was kind of something, I've got to give my stuff in. She said, okay, put it there. And I give my warrant card and my handcuffs and my CS spray and my phone, everything into a sort of a tray with her. And that was it. That was it. That 30 years, poof, gone.
It's mad. It's mad.
I didn't want a marching band and a ticker tape parade, but you thought somebody might have said something, you know? But
yeah, but you know what, Colin, like you've just said there, it sounds like, you know, when boxers retire.
Yeah.
And this is a funny, what's in this, because I remember when Ricky Hatton, when he retired.
Yeah.
And he was lost. There was no buzz there no more.
Yeah.
All the people, you know, all like the stadiums he'd fill out, or the arenas he'd fill out. And he just said that the buzz, you know, like you said, you were going into the office and it was, there was nothing to, you know what I mean? Because considering what you've done over the years, you know, murder investigations, you know, many crime investigations that you've done, not so much the buzz, it's like the adrenaline. You've got something at the bit between your teeth, so to speak. You've got all these people to manage, men and women, to go out and try and investigate and let's identify this crime and, you know, the criminal who did it. So, but it was just, that was it.
It's just, you know, it became, I mean, it's probably the only regret I've really got now is what I should have done in that time was say, okay, I'm here, I haven't got much to do, let me find something to do. Give me an old case to look at, give me, you know, something like that. That's what I should have done. But I didn't, and I wish I had really, because perhaps I'd have felt differently and better about things.
And you probably would have stopped on.
I might have stopped on, yeah. I mean, financially it didn't make any sense because I always looked at it this way. If you do 30 years, you get a 30-year pension. You can get 2/3 of what you're being paid for not going to work if you don't take a lump sum. Or you can take a big lump sum and have half what you used to get. So if you carry on working after 30 years, you're actually working for half pay at best, if not only 1/3 of your pay, because you could have 2/3 of it without going. So financially, I think it doesn't make any sense, really. I mean, it depends, you know, there are other considerations, but there was that, and it was at a time in my life when, you know, I sort of was coming to the fag end of my then marriage, and it was just the right time to have a change.
Yeah.
So I did.
Do you know, obviously you've dealt with some hideous people, Belfield, Grant. Any others that really stick out? That, I mean, I know we said we didn't really want to, but it was a question I was speaking to my mate about this morning on WhatsApp. My mate Sean, he said to me, Tony, ask him who was the most, you know, and I think Belfield and Grant come into it.
Yeah, Belfield and Grant are sort of up there in the Premier League on their own, aren't they? You know, that's the
hideous,
trouble because of the scale of what they did. And, you know, they were very different. And I find it difficult to decide which one was worse. Yeah. Because Belfield was just horrible to everybody. Yeah. And ruined so many lives. But then 200 plus people over the age of 70 who were attacked by Delroy Grant
and some of the stuff that he was doing, I was explaining to Ben, our producer, breaking in and switching the electric off and hiding mobile phones and all that.
Yeah. He was very, very sort of organised and very sort of, I mean, it's all about, I'm no psychologist, but I guess it's all about control and about, wielding that power. But I think the difference is, and I still don't know who this makes worse, but when we spoke to friends and associates of Levi Belfield and told them that he'd been charged, you know, with what he'd done, virtually all of them said, well, yeah,
we're not surprised.
We're not surprised. He's always been a wrong, and we always knew he was a wrong, and it was just a matter of time before it all came out. Okay. When you spoke to similar people who knew Delroy, they say you must have the wrong man. You've got the wrong bloke. He's the life and soul of the party. He's the mainstay of the cricket club. He's the mainstay of the Dominoes team in the pub. He's the one who always does the DJing and cooks the barbecue when we have street parties in the cul-de-sac. He's got this disabled wife who he looks after 24/7.
But he had this dark side to him.
And he could switch it on and off. So when I'm introduced to Levi Belfield by one of the DCs at Heathrow Police Station, first time I ever clapped eyes on the man in the flesh, I said, "Oh, Levi, this is Mr. Sutton, he's the boss." He said, "Fuck off, prick." Oh, okay, fair enough. that's the way it's going to be. When I got introduced to Delroy, he bowed his head, put his hand out, "Hello, Mr. Sutton." Really respectful. And do you know the story about the cricket conversation?
No, go on.
Right, so we're in the charge room at Lewisham Police Station. It's custody suite, as they now call them. It's about 3 a.m. He's just had a giant cotton bud wiped across his cheek that he knows and I know is going to send him to prison for 30 years or so. Yeah?
DNA,
Yeah. And he's standing there in his white paper suit because they've taken all the clothes off him. And no matter how evil or horrible these people are, as a professional, you need to talk to them. And you have to forget what they've done or who they are, and you just have to talk to them, yeah? So I said, "Oh, hello," and I thought, how can I strike a conversation with him? So he's 53 years old, he's from the Caribbean, he's from Jamaica originally, actually, and he's there all in white, so he looks a bit like a cricketer. So I said to him, "What are you doing then, batting or bowling?" You see, he seized on it, he says, "You into cricket?" I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "I bet you don't still play." I said, "I do a bit, not very often now." He says, "I still play." "What do you do, bat or bowl?" I said, "I only bat these days. Knees won't take bowling."
That was the icebreaker, was it?
"I still do both," he says, "Tell me." And England are going to tour South Africa that winter, yeah? "What do you think the England squad are going to South Africa?" I said, "Well, I reckon we'd probably one quick bowler light, but I think he said, that's what I've been telling the boys down the club. Yeah, they need another quickie there with those hard." We're having a conversation about cricket, like you'd have in a pub, like we might about football or whatever. And he's just done that.
And he's been called for them
I
crimes.
just thought that was weird at the time. And I remember my dad saying to me, in the police, when you think you've seen it all, something else will come along. And that was kind of it. That was it, yeah. But as I've got older and looked back on it, and when I was writing the book and things like that, I realised I was getting the Delroy that all those friends get, who said, "You've got the wrong man, he's a lovely bloke." He was putting that on for me there.
Yeah. It's just what goes through their minds. It's like the crimes that they've committed, like this lovely man and whatever he does down the cricket club, the dominoes and stuff, and just switches like that. And then it's like, and what he did, that's just...
Oh, it's just like incredible. I mean, another question people often ask me is how do you keep your temper when you're talking to people like that, you know? And I said, again, it's just a matter of being professional, knowing that, you're doing your job and whatever they've done. But the only time, and I didn't lose my temper because he wasn't there to lose temper against. But if Delroy Grant had been next to me when a 94-year-old woman grabbed my hand with both of hers and sort of pulled me down, and I bent down to her and she said, "Colin, he interfered with me, And she hadn't told anyone. For some reason, we had two family liaison officers, female officers, Sam and Debbie, who were on that job, who were just phenomenally good. And I actually really liked the idea that we had a black suspect and we had all exclusively white victims. Both the family liaison officers were black officers, because it just showed how it all didn't matter to anybody.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a story about that actually again in a minute. But yeah, they were fantastic. These two women, the patience, the empathy, the kindness that they showed these old ladies was phenomenal.
They do a fantastic job as it is anyway.
They do anyway,
but
yeah.
With this case.
Yeah. But she hadn't told her. For some reason, she told me. I was the first one she told that she'd been interfered with, as she put it. And if he'd have been next to me then, I'd killed him, I think. Seriously, I felt it's the only time I've really felt such anger in what this man had done. And then I had to click back into professional mode because I had a decision to make then. She's alleging sexual offences like that. What should we do now? We should take her to the rape suite. And the sad thing about it is that women who are raped, and men who are raped for that matter, but it's predominantly women as we know, they've just been through the most traumatic, horrible experience of their entire life. And what do? We subject them to another one. Because we have to take them to somewhere to be examined and swabbed and all that. And there is no way of squaring that circle, because if you're going to proceed with that prosecution for that offensive rape,
Any evidence.
you need to get that evidence. Without that, you can't do it. And it doesn't matter how pink the walls are and how soft the furnishings are and how nice the pipe music is when you take them in there. At the end of the day, they're going to be subjected to an
examination.
to an intimate examination. Yeah. So, and you know, if anyone can ever come up with a way around that, that'd be fantastic. But I don't think you can. I really don't think you can. So she's alleged that she'd been indecently assaulted. We ought to take her there and get that done. And I look at this 94-year-old lady who's got a sort of a cataract or some growth over one eye, and she's very posh almost. She's got a really cut-class accent. Her husband was he'd been dead for nearly 30 years, but her husband was a bank manager when that meant something. You know, when the house they had. It was all decrepit. It hadn't been money spent on it, but it was a nice big house. And I had to decide, I know the rules say we ought to take her down there to the suite and get her examined. I said, she's not going. There's no point. There is no point, because we'll just kill her.
She'll have to well, it's not reliving it, but
but
it's the process
of it all. I just didn't want to subject her to that. And, you know, every now and then, it's not very often, when you're in the position I was in, you get to make a decision. And I said, no, that's my decision. I'll stand a fool by it.
I'll stand on for that. You know.
And so he didn't. But you know, she never ate a thing after that day. She died 6 weeks later. 94 years old. He killed her just as sure as if he'd have shot her or stabbed her. But we couldn't prove it. We couldn't charge him with the murder because the causation, it's all too remote.
But we'd put it down to natural causes or something.
Do you know, it was put down in her death certificate as old age. Yeah. But she hadn't eaten for 6 days. She went to hospital, obviously. But, yeah, I mean...
The trauma.
He killed her. He killed her. She's on it. And she's not the only one. You know, the people that had lived happy lives in these houses...
Destroyed by monster.
Who never went back into it after that day. There were 2 separate old ladies who we spoke to. So Sam and Deb, the family liaison officers, as soon as we arrested him, said, everyone who's still alive, who's a victim, let them know that he's been arrested and that we've got him. And 2 of these old ladies said to them, oh, thank God for that, I can go back to sleeping in the night time now. And both of them, since they'd been attacked by him, had stayed up all night and slept during the day in case he came back. People don't deserve that in their 80s, do they? Nobody does.
Nobody
they don't in their 80s.
But that's just like you say, you're dealing with these despicable animals. That's what they are, basically.
Yeah, it's just, it was a horrible, horrible case. And that's why, despite the fact that Levi Belfield murdered, despite the fact that I know that he raped on a lot of occasions, that he had an interest in girls as young as 11, you know, he was a horrible, horrible, evil, vindictive, violent man. But when you look at the effects that Delroy Grant had, I can't choose between the two.
2 of them, like you say, they're just both off the scale, you know.
Yeah, and so that's why really when people say, like your original question that I've danced around a bit, who else was, I never came across anyone with that sort of evil. Lots of murderers, most murderers don't intend to be murderers. You know, they do something
to hurt someone, but it's obviously
but you know they might intend to kill, but they're not murdering for the sake of murder. There's they do have a kind of reason for it, even if that's a twisted reason that you or I wouldn't agree with. And some, there's 1 or 2 you actually feel a little bit of sympathy for. You know, I'll tell you a story about this is an evil man, really. That it's a story that I told in my first tour that I did. This is about a man called Mohammed Khalil, who he was 47, I think, years old, maybe something like that. He was living in a halfway house, a sort of an assisted living space for people with alcohol addiction problems, drug addiction problems, or mental health problems. And he lived there, and he had alcohol problems. He probably also had mental health problems, to be honest, as well. And he had a friend there called David Sheehan, who was a big lad. He wasn't the nicest bloke, David Sheehan. He was a bit of a bully, to be honest, but he was also an alcoholic. And these 2 used to get drunk, drinking sort of cheap cider and stuff, and then fight. And that was their way of living. They lived next door to each other. Yeah. And one day they got completely blotto again, and Khalil decided that it was time that he did something about it. And Sheehan's laying comatose drunk on his bed, and Khalil stabbed him 47 times with a steel. You know the steel that you sharpen knives with?
Yeah.
They don't really have a sharp end, do they? He stabbed him 47 times in one of those and cut his throat for good measure. And we arrested him a couple of days later. And he had an interest in the occult, and he was a bit sort of weird, and so he had mental health problems. And he turned up for his probation office meeting. We never thought he would, and that's where we arrested him. And he'd left handprints in blood on the ceiling.
I was going to say, was he on the run? But
no, not really. In fact, he would say to us, so yeah, we knew it was him because, well, we knew it was him anyway for lots of reasons, but he'd left really good evidence with bloody handprints on the sloping ceiling above the bed, because it was quite, he'd sort of levered himself against it to get some purchase to plunge this thing in. But when we arrested him, he said, look, I called the ambulance for him. I flagged the bus down and told them that I just stabbed someone, and they called the ambulance, which was true. He wasn't sort of completely knowing what he was doing. Anyway, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter by reason of provocation. And it was a really strange thing to me that you can stab somebody 47 times with something that's not very sharp and cut their throat and still be a manslaughter, you know? And you know, the funny thing, the peculiar thing about this was, David Sheehan's mother spoke to me. She said, I'm not proud of my boys, they're not angels, she said, but David's brother is in prison for serving life for murder. I said, oh, I didn't know that, and we hadn't picked it up on her. She said, yeah, but he was in a fight in a pub, punched somebody once, they fell over, banged their head, he got murdered. And that, I mean, we've got a phrase, we call it one-punch manslaughter. You know, it often happens. And so she said, how comes he's got life for murder and this man gets 7 years or 8 years, whatever? I think 8 years for manslaughter. And I couldn't.
7 or 8 years.
He got 8 years. It was 8 years. But the postscript to this is that he got released early and then did something that breached his license and was taken back in. So he finally did a whole 8 years. And in 2010, he got released. Within 6 weeks, he'd met a man in a park in Ealing, gone to his flat with him because he was going to make him a meal, and stabbed him 13 times and killed him.
That's...
And he got 30 years that time for murder. But you can't help but say, if he hadn't been allowed to plead manslaughter on the first one, Michael Zubro, the second victim, would still be alive.
It's these laws, Colin, where you think to yourself, it's there to see, like that lady, the example, his son had punched someone. Yeah. And it's like they say, that one punch.
Yeah.
Where it takes one punch, someone bangs the head.
Couldn't we all have done that? Over the years, couldn't we?
Anyone could have done it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
But then to stab someone, say for instance, there's a scenario where it's a knife, it wasn't a knife, and he started to stab him, he took the knife off him, he stabbed him. That maybe could be classed as manslaughter. Yeah. But then again, to cut his throat and stab him 47 times, and then to let him go, yeah, we can charge him on this charge, but not on that charge. Yeah. I find it outrageous. Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's just a system. We shouldn't get annoyed about it. So, you know, the reason that I brought that up was actually, do you know what? Yeah. He was a pretty evil bloke. Really, yeah. Because he just had a lust to kill, you know, and we didn't really appreciate it at the time. We just thought he was slightly deranged, and we charged him with murder. CPS originally had charged him with murder. It was at court that they accepted the plea, but I wish they hadn't, because Michael Zubro would still be alive.
Of course, exactly. Your two books, Colin, Manhunt, the true story of Manhunt the Night Stalker.
Yeah.
How was it like writing them, you know, obviously reliving the cases and the investigation and all that again?
Yeah, it was very different actually, writing the two. The first one, just called Manhunt, is the Levi Belfield one. I could virtually write that, I won't say I could write it from my mind, but I'd lived that case from from the start to finish of that book. Yeah. I was involved with it. Yeah. And so I did lots of checking up. I still got lots of notes and checked up for dates and the sequence of things, but it wasn't that difficult. With the Night Stalker, he was on, you know, the book spans 17 years because it was the first apparently offence was in 1992. And I only say apparently because I'm not so sure, but you'll have to wait and come see the show for that. 1992 to 2009, so it spans 17 years. I was only there for the last 9 months of it.
Yeah.
So I had to do a lot more research. So it was much more akin to what proper authors do. I still don't count myself as a proper author. But yeah, so it was. I'm one of these people that I'm a great procrastinator, but fortunately my wife knows this. And what I actually found out, it was brilliant actually, when I was writing the first one, she had to go to London and get the train at 7:15, sort of 3 days on the trot. Unusually, it's obviously pre-COVID, when she used to work in an office. And she had to go to these things at London. And because she works for a local authority, they're too cheap to send her to a hotel. So she had to come home each day. And I was taking her to the station, and I was getting home by 7:20 with nothing to do. I might as well. And all of a sudden, woof, I was doing 4,000 words. Yeah. And I realised that although I've always thought I'm not a morning person, I get things done if I start early. So I did that with the second book as well when I needed to. And that was during lockdown. I sort of said, well, if you don't, you've got a book to write, Colin. If you don't finish it while you're locked down, then you must be some kind of idiot, So I did. I quite enjoy it. I quite enjoy writing. I've always quite enjoyed writing, even when I did my A-levels were all sort of essay-based rather than scientifically based. So I've always quite enjoyed writing. Once I sit down and do it, I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, that's right into it.
The best compliment I got about it, I think, the thing that made me really laugh was the publishers obviously do publicity just before you're going to, before the book gets published, launched. And they set up various things for me with newspapers. And I went on Radio 5 with Niall Arthur and Ayako, if you've ever listened to any of his. He's a fantastic interview. He's just stopped doing a show, actually. He's a big Spurs fan, so I think that's probably why we got on. But I went on there and did some TV as well. And so playing all that, I met up with the publicist, the sort of publicity person from the publishers. And it was at a coffee bar in Waterloo Station. And I went in and I met her, and she's a nice lady. And sat down with a coffee, and she said, well, I've read the book, it's really good. I said, oh, that's nice. If you're going to be flogging it, I suppose you ought to think it's good. She said, who did the ghostwriting for you? I said, excuse me? And she said, who was your ghostwriter? I said, I didn't have one, I wrote it. She said, oh no, you're a policeman, you can't write like that.
So she said, yeah?
She said, I said, oh, yeah, I did. So she said, oh wow, I'm sorry, I'm really shocked, And she thought it'd been. So I was quite pleased with that. So at least I could do something.
Yes.
But yeah. So I don't know if I'll do it. I should.
Are you going to write another book?
Yeah, I will do. I'm halfway through one actually.
Can you tell us what it's obviously
based
on?
I can. I mean, it's about. There's actually been a series that I made that's on Crime Investigation Channel. 4-parter. The last part you sort of broadcast on Monday this week, but it's all there for download anyway.
Yeah.
Called The West End Murders. It's about 3 murders in London in the 1970s that I did a review of when I first went back to the Met in 2002. Then I did about 10 weeks of investigation on with my team in 2004, and then Emily Delagrange got murdered. We got the Belfield case, and we had to give that to somebody else, and they weren't so interested in this old case, but I thought it was eminently solvable. So I'm writing a book about that. The thing is that the result of what we did for the TV programme, it's gone back to the Met and it's been reopened. So I can't finish the book until I know what the ending is. So I'm depending on them, sort of thing, yeah. But I've started writing that, yeah. I'd love to write a fiction book, but I just don't think I'm good enough. I don't know. I've got an idea.
Look at the books that you've written, you've written this already, should I say?
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just, I don't think I'm creative enough. I think I quite like the discipline of having to tell the truth. I don't know. Because suddenly, if you just open up all that kind of wide playing field of just imagining whatever you want, I'm not sure I've got the brain to do that. I think my brain's more logical and truthful. I don't know.
What would you do if an email or someone contacted you, some big film guru, Netflix or something, or whatever? Would you be interested in them to get involved with them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll do anything. It's better than delivering flowers.
We'd say, but you never say never. Like you say, true crime all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, I went to America this year to CrimeCon in Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was like amazing.
What was the what's name like for you? The attention and that.
It was amazingly different to London. It's huge.
Yeah.
There's 6,000 people attending. It was at a resort called the it's called Gaylord Opry Resort, which is Opryland just outside of Nashville. It's 2,800 rooms, about 20 bars and restaurants. It's like a cruise ship, but on the ground, you know, this place. I was doing 12,000 steps just walking around the place. Yeah, seriously.
It was that big.
It was that big, yeah. And I was surprised at how many people in America knew who I was and what I'd done. So both the dramas have been over there. I think season 1, if not season 1 and 2 of Real Manhunter are on Acorn TV over there. And obviously the books have gone there as well. So people did know. And I did 3 sessions, one just about Belford. I did the last session with a guy called Paul Holes, who is like the American true crime rock star at the moment. He's very pretty. It's quite embarrassing sitting on stage with him because he's so sort of clean cut American. But he's a nice guy. He's a cold case expert who
Is he their biggie over there? Is he like
did the Golden State Killer, found the Golden State Killer. So that's his claim to fame. And so I did the Golden State Killer was dubbed the Night Stalker in America. You see, so we did this thing together. The US Night Stalker
and the
versus the UK Night Stalker. And we spoke about it beforehand, and we were going to have a Zoom and talk about it. And when I spoke to him, we said, do you know what, let's just be 2 guys in a bar telling stories about our cases. And that's how we did it. We just sat there with a drink, and not an alcoholic drink, but a cup of coffee, and just sat there. So what was yours like in terms of this? Oh, it was like this. What about? And we just let it flow. And it worked really, really well, because I think both of us can talk the hind legs off the donkey, and it just went really well and went down really well. So I really enjoyed it. And there were 5 Brits over there there was a podcaster, and then a criminologist, me, and then 2 people from the CrimeCon team in London. And we all finished by Sunday lunchtime, and we weren't flying back. I wasn't flying back till Tuesday. So we hit the town on Sunday night, and Nashville Boulevard is just, if you like music, it's just amazing. You know, it's just, you've got a mile of 4-story buildings with a live band on each floor and the roof, and they all play for tips. They don't none of them get paid to be there, but they're all playing for tips. And we centered on this. Nancy from CrimeCon did a bucking bronco machine. That was quite fun. And then we ended up in this bar where this band was so good, and we spent about 3 hours there, but it was just great. It was a great time. And then there was a lightning storm on this Monday when I arranged to play golf, so I was really annoyed about that. I couldn't play golf while I was over there, but yeah, it was a great time. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on, Colin, it's a bit of a touchy one, on the Madeleine McCann case, and what you would have done differently if you were in charge of it.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I don't like to speculate about the case too much. I have my opinions,
of course,
but it's one of those cases where, when you state your opinions, you get slaughtered by half, and if you say a separate opinion, you'll get slaughtered by the other half. It's so touchy. Yeah. So it's better to keep out of it. But I don't mind saying what I've said before and what
if you were in charge of the case, I mean, look,
I did. The theory was that I nearly was, because somebody got told, and the newspaper was told that I was going to be taking over what became Operation Grange in 2010. And at the time, the Met didn't have the money. It was when we had a change of government in 2010, and the Met was saying to the Home Office, you've got to pay for this because it's nothing to do with us.
Because it was obviously in
Portugal. And the new Home Office, Theresa May, bless her, no, don't bless her, but Theresa May, when she came in as I'm sorry, but the woman ruined the police service as well as the country, and she's on my hit list. She said, oh, well, we haven't got the money to do that, we'll have to look. And I retired, but there was a possibility I could have done. But I've said this before, there was somebody who I'll never name, but somebody senior in the Met who phoned me up and said, don't do it, you won't like being told where you can and can't look. So based on that warning I was given, that was sort of
alarm bell
that was a warning from a mate rather than a senior officer, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And then how Operation Grange proceeded. Operation Grange was set up on the premise to investigate the abduction as if it had taken place in the UK. That was their sort of terms of reference. And to me, those terms of reference started you halfway along the story because it assumed that there'd been a abduction. And, you know the old things, assume nothing when you're investigating. So I think it should have started at the very beginning and then got to that point and then carried on if it got to that point.
Find facts first, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's the thing I would have wanted to have done differently was I would have bucked against terms of reference that said investigate the abduction as if it occurred in the UK, because I say no, let's change the word abduction to disappearance and then I'm your man.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done differently.
That's it. So any other high profile cases that since you've been retired you've seen, you think, oh, I could get my teeth into that, or does,
No, I don't think so. It's funny, it's not so much the high profile things. I saw a programme on BBC Two where they followed I think it was Essex murder squad around. Yeah, it was, because the murder happened near Southend United Football Ground, Roots Hall. And it was the first time, I'd been retired for about 8 years or something, and it was the first time I watched something on telly and thought, yeah, I missed that. Yeah, that because it showed the murder team and the SO in the first few hours of a new investigation. And those first few hours, yes, they're crucial to the success of it. And I guess because you know that they're crucial to the success of it, they're the times where you're really sort of hyped to make sure you do the right thing. Yeah. So that was the only time that I thought, hey, I used to enjoy that. And I did enjoy it. There's no question. It's terrible, isn't it? Because when we were occasionally, and it was only very occasional, when we were occasionally sort of underused as a team, we were on call and nothing's happening, or we were in the frame, as they used to say, which meant we'd take the next investigation. Nothing's happening. Somebody once said, I saw two of your detectives walking down Putney High Street like the Grim Reapers. They're waiting for someone to die. And you kind of remember that, yes, I'm bored, but someone's got to get murdered to unbore me, and you feel a bit bad about that. But yeah, I do miss some of the people, but I'm still in touch with the people that matter.
Yeah.
Matter to me, particularly from that team that did leave our Belford, because they were just brilliant. They were just so good. And I've got quite sort of strong views about police leadership, and as I said to you earlier on, I did it for an awfully long time, and I always thought my job was to make sure they could do their job to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
That was my job. And if that meant, Harry Redknapp arm around the shoulder, or Jose Mourinho, or Alex Ferguson hairdryer, you could do either one.
You get the best out. That's what you do to get the best out of people sometimes.
You do it depending on the people. And to be honest, I didn't do the hairdryer very often, because I always thought it meant when I did, they knew that I meant it.
No, but this is it. When you're managing so many people and you're asking them to follow something up or do something, and if they're doing the job, there's no need for you to moan or give them a little bit of a bollocking or whatever.
And I always had their back.
Yeah.
And I think that when I was in America, this is good. I was in America. I spoke to an American cop there, gave him one of my thin blue line patches, which they're still allowed to wear. Anyway, no, don't go there, Colin. And talked to him. And he said, Colin, the Met's a bit of a shit show at the moment, isn't it? I said, well, I don't like your characterisation very much, but yeah, you're probably right. And he said, what does it need? What's the problem? And I said, well, look, it needs more resources, it needs more money. It got drastically cut in the 2010 and hasn't really recovered from that. It's lost a load of its buildings, and it can't really police communities because it doesn't have buildings in the communities anymore. But it could probably do with a little less political interference. But then I said, but do you know what I think the thing it could most do with is having leaders who cared more about their teams and about the organisation than they did about themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the big change has been in the last 20 years, is that because of the way that promotions are done, and because of the way people's careers, aspirations are managed, it's actually much easier to keep a low profile and not really do anything, and then just tick the right boxes and do the right things in front of the board of HR people, and then you get promoted. If you actually put yourself on the line and stand up for your beliefs or your team or your community even, you stand a chance of...
And I think that's why the police do come in for a lot of, because when the shit does hit the fan, and it does, and you can understand what you've just touched on there, you know, money pumped in and you know, the facilities and stuff like that. I just think, you know, that's why people don't have a lot of faith in, not just so much in the Met, even like, you know, in these areas and stuff.
Yeah, it's everywhere. But I speak to a lot of young, you know, rank and file police officers. Say my son's a uniformed sergeant, and 5 of his schoolmates actually all went into the Met. So I see them, talk to them. When I'm doing my gigs, lots of police officers come to them and come and speak to me. And I always say that the rank and file, the people who want to do the job, the majority.
What's failing and whatever, would you speak to them?
Yeah, I do, but and they want to do the job the same as I wanted to do the job, the same as my dad wants to do the job in 1956 when he joined, you know? And it's just become more and more difficult for them. And, you know, my son's on a response team, and response teams in the Met now just go blue light, blue light, blue light, blue light, blue light, call to call, because there's so few of them. That team that he's on has got 2 London boroughs to cover, and he has about the same number of people as I had to cover half of Islington when I was a uniform inspector. And, you know, and we wonder why we can't give a decent service to people. And yet it's not the individual's fault. Yes, you get people like Cousins and you get people like Carrick, and that's awful. And every single cop pays the price for that to a degree. You know, because
corruption goes on, I think, in a lot of, not just in the police, but when you just mention them Cousins and what's the name, for what
Carrick,
you know, what they done, you know what I mean, and it's highly documented, and you know, you see it, and then corruption goes on within football, it goes on within business, and it goes on. But with the police, I think it's, you know, when you think, wow,
it has more direct implications for individuals than corruption in football or corruption in industry or things like that.
Yeah.
That's the trouble. You've got, you know, and yeah, you're right to use the word corruption, because things that Cousins and Carrick did, they are corruption. There's too many police officers who think that corruption is only about money and only about taking bribes and stuff like that. It's not. It's corruption of integrity, and that includes sexual harassment or sexual offences and things like that, or violence,
trust, blackmail, stuff like that. It's everything that comes down.
And you know, there's no doubt that the eye was taken off the ball in terms of vetting. And did you realise that certainly Wayne Cousins came from the Civic Nuclear Constabulary via Kent Specials to the Met. I think that's right. He might have been a Kent officer, actually. I don't know, but he was originally, and a lot of other the ring of officers with the WhatsApp stuff that was all racist and homophobic and stuff at Charing Cross. Many of those, if not all of them, had come from that same source, the Civic Nuclear Constabulary. Basically, you've got not a Home Office police force. It takes a lot of people to be essentially security guards with a gun at bases, and because the Met were so desperate to get people in, it took them directly in as police officers
instead of doing the right.
And they weren't vetted in the way they should be, but also they're put into situations that they've never had in their policing. You know, they're put straight out to go and work at Charing Cross. There's a hell of a lot of difference trying to police the city of Westminster compared to manning a barrier at a nuclear power plant. And you wonder why things go wrong. Yeah. So, you know, there were bad decisions made, but like everything these days, everyone's got Teflon gloves, haven't they? You know, nothing sticks with anybody other than down at the bottom. Yeah. And that's, I find that really troubling, because I knew some amazing leaders when I was in the police. Amazing leaders who you would walk through a brick wall for, because you knew that they, at the other side, they'd say you needed to do it and they'd brush the dust off you.
And they'd have your back. And,
yeah,
you know,
and I'm not sure that's like that now, you know, and that's the major thing, because police officers want to police. They want to do the job they signed up to do. And if they feel that they can't do it because they're not getting the support, you know, look at the number of firearms officers that apparently have handed their authorisations in after this guy who's on trial at the moment. And if he gets convicted of murder, having listened to some of the evidence now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think he will, but that's my opinion. But you know,
How they meant to do the job?
Why would you put yourself on offer to have to make these split-second decisions as to whether or not to kill someone to save someone else for no extra money, when you can plod around in a panda car or whatever?
Or do whatever, yeah.
You know, so
There's loads of pros and cons.
there's an old story, isn't there? An old saying that's saying the society gets the police it deserves, and I think we're experiencing that at the moment.
But that's it, isn't it? So, Colin, what's in the pipeline for yourself? You know,
No idea. I just take it as it comes. I ride the wave. I'm doing this tour at the moment. It's long and grueling and doesn't finish till next summer. But well, actually, it goes into September next year, I think. But only one at the moment. I'm being asked already, will I do another one? If I can think of something to say, I might do. Because I am enjoying it. I said I've got a book in the pipeline. I'm hoping there's going to be some more television. I'm pretty sure we've got at least one. There's a couple of things that we've pitched, but like everything with the cost of living crunch, people have said, you know, they've taken off their Sky subscriptions or their Prime or their Netflix or whatever. So it's been a bit of a tough world trying to get programmes commissioned the last sort of 18 months, but I think that's gradually getting a bit better. Although we'll have to see what happens with the economy over the coming months, and who knows. But yeah, so hopefully there'll be some more television, because I've got some really good ideas that we've pitched that I want to do.
Yeah.
Before I get too old and too decrepit to sort of stand in front of a camera. But hey, you know, if I don't do any of that, my handicap was down to 11 point something last year. It's back up to 13 point something, so I've got that to work on.
You golf and stuff.
Yeah.
And you go and watch your team.
I said just giving up our season tickets this year, because where we live, it's so far away. It was like 9 hours in our day to go down there and do it, and we've done it together Dave's done it with me for the last 10 years, including, and I've lived in East Anglia, I've been Norfolk, and yeah, you know, even 2 years at Wembley, which was hard as well. So we just decided, enough's enough. We've saved our money. You know, it's expensive.
Of course,
it is expensive. You know. But we can still go to the Euro games, the Cup games, if we ever win any and get through to the next round. So
I won't say too much, as I'm Everton, so we don't have that here. But if you're ever up in Liverpool and you want to come to watch Everton, Tottenham, I can sort you some tickets.
Oh, can you? That'd be nice. Yeah, that'd be great. I'll take you up on that. I'd like to go and see the new ground at homes. So maybe next
Pop
season.
down to Bramley Moor and have a little.
Yeah.
Looks a little bit like Tottenham.
Yeah, the grounds are amazing. I mean, people don't realise it's not an advert for them, but I suppose it is a bit. But it's one of the cheapest places in London to buy a pint of lager. It's Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Really? And you wouldn't think that.
You wouldn't think that with Levy,
but you think of Levy. Levy, see, shrewd, isn't he? There's 66,000 people there that might be buying beer. Does he want them to buy it in the pubs outside or the ground inside?
So he puts it cheaper inside the stadium.
It's not silly. He's not silly.
Colin, I just want to say thank you very much for sharing the good,
It's
bad and
been
the ugly.
Absolute pleasure, Tony.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Cheers.